What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Brave and Faithful. Today, I have an Air Force veteran. He is also the founder and CEO of Courageous Leadership Alliance, Mr. Todd Simmons. What's going on, Todd?
Hey, how you doing, man? That's not doing too bad up here in DC. Trying to get out of this weather so I can get back on the golf course for the first time in about 2 months. So not too bad. Great to see you, and great to be here supporting you.
I appreciate it, man. Before we start talking about what you're doing now in your second service, can you just tell our audience a little bit about your time in the Air Force, how long you served for and your experiences with that?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I served in the Air Force for 25 years, 7 months, 14 days, and 90 minutes. So I wasn't I wasn't counting my time at all.
No, no.
But I served in the Air Force. I grew up in a small town in South Carolina. No one in my family ever joined the Air Force, except my cousin and I, who joined about a year apart. But I come from a strong Army family. A lot of uncles in the Army, a lot of Vietnam vets. My dad was in the Marines in Vietnam, and just a lot of strong military folks. And for me, I joined the Air Force, saw Air Force recruiting in my high school, didn't have a bunch of plans like a bunch of young men and women out, sometimes didn't have a plan A or B, and joined the Air Force and came to the Air Force's security forces, which is like, military police and some of the other services, shore patrol and, or massive arms in the Navy. But, did that for 20 years from E1 to E9. So, was in security forces, did a lot of great things, served overseas for 17 consecutive years of those 20 years in security forces, and came back to the States. Then I went down the leadership track and became a command chief, which we call in the Air Force, command senior enlisted, and retired at 25 years as the command chief of Air University. And Air University is essentially the command that does all leadership and development for all of the United States Air Force, all 600,000 folks. So that was an awesome endeavor to be the senior enlisted leader for all Air Force education, and get to travel around the world and really try to inspire and develop our airmen around the world. So it was great. So awesome time living overseas for 17 years, raised kids, and over in Japan for a long time, and it just was a great ride. And I don't regret 1 second of my career. It just was an awesome ride and an awesome first chapter of my life, and it's just great memories.
So, you mentioned, a strong family background in the military, right? A lot of them Army. You said your dad was in the Marines. Did they kind of push you towards the Air Force route and do that? Or was that just like hey, I
No,
want to do the Air Force?
I tell you, man, I mean, my senior year of high school, I had zero plans. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, I was like a 2.2 GPA kid, and I didn't have a strong academic background, which would probably some of your listeners and viewers will go, didn't he just say he was in charge of education for the Air Force? Yeah, yeah, I was, but I had a long journey in between those bookends. But so for me, I can't, the last minute of my senior year, I was like, man, I'm not going to college, man, and I'm really not going to have a long future living in my mom's house. So I need to figure something out here. So, and I'll just be totally honest, I'm a transparent person. This is how I decided what branch of military to join. Like, I grew up near Paris Island, so I grew up playing football near the Marines. I grew up 20 minutes away from Paris Island. So I always was familiar with the Marines on Paris Island, very familiar with the Army at Fort Stewart, Hunt Army, at Airborne. I saw all these other branches. I never saw anyone in the Air Force. So I saw this recruiter in my high school one day, and he was a staff sergeant, and I went and talked to him, and he essentially told me I wasn't qualified for the Air Force. And I was like, what? He challenged me. So I went and looked up on my brother. Never forget, on my, internet was relatively new in the 90s. And I looked up on my brother-in-law had a computer. I didn't have a computer in my house. And I looked up all the four services. And you know what clued me in on the Air Force? I said, I have to join the Air Force. They had the shortest basic military training.
They did.
That was
about like 6.5 or something.
It was 6 weeks back then.
Yeah.
That was my single deciding factor. And from there, I pursued my recruiter with relentless effort to join the Air Force, and eventually I got into the Air Force, and that was just that. That story was written there.
That's awesome, man. So you mentioned towards the end of your career, you're the CMC, correct, of Air University.
Yes.
Obviously a big job that you had to fill there as a senior enlisted person. What are some of the things that kind of, from that job led you to doing what you're doing now?
So it was a longer journey than that. And that's something that's very important for folks, right? So to know is, because a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, we were all in the military and we were all leaders and I want to get out and I want to do what you do, which I am the first person to applaud anybody who want to jump in the shoes of entrepreneurship because it's not an easy road, right?
Right.
And so for me, but leadership development started for me 17, 18 years ago as an E6. I had a great opportunity in Japan because I never joined the Air Force to stay in the Air Force. I got married really young in the Air Force. My wife was way better than me in the Air Force. She was also in the Air Force. She had a way better career than me at the beginning. Now she wanted to be an officer and she became an officer. So I was always planning to get out. So for me, I went to school really early in my enlisted career. So I went to college and I relentlessly went to college and failed the classes like crazy in the beginning because I had this education deficit. So I ended up getting my bachelor's degree as an E5, and I was going to get out because I wanted to become a school teacher of everything. I wanted to go troops to teachers, that program that
Okay.
was
Yeah.
around. And so we ended up getting orders to Japan, which meant I had to extend in the military. So long story short, I got to Japan, I made E6, and I still was getting out. And my wife ended up getting out after a bad deployment to Iraq and some things. And, and I ended up staying in the Air Force. But what made me, go to, I always had a knack for teaching and wanted to teach. So I went over to a college, Central Texas College, by the way, in Japan, and they offered me a job teaching criminal justice because that's what my degree was in. Because I immediately started my master's degree after my bachelor's degree. So I taught college from E6 to E9.
Mm.
So I taught college for about 15, 16 years on active duty, on and off, online, in the classroom, did some things like that. And I just had a very I just had a desire to do that. So when I retired from the Air Force, especially at Air University, which really set me up with the confidence and the tools to understand how leadership really works from an academic to a practical, and then my years in security forces leading very large organizations all over the world, having that frontline, experience overseas in the combat zone, and then having the education and the knowledge and the research behind all of that, I just thought it was a really big combination that I could add some uniqueness in this space. Right? I'm just not a person who has read books, or I'm just not a person who have developed curriculum or have theories. I'm a person who's been at the point of
Right. Right.
leadership, and I have the theories, and I've read books, and I've done my own research, and I'm a teacher. So I just put that all together. And when I retired, I said, I'm going to do something that I think everybody should do at some point in their life, is bet on themselves. So I
Mm.
bet on me, and I said, I can go get a job at 10 leadership companies. I can do that any day of the week. I can go get a job teaching, do leadership, or I can give myself 2 years and I can see if I really can do this thing that I wholeheartedly believe I can do. So that's what I did. I gave myself 2 years.
So talk to us about, I think we were talking offline. You just got out about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
during, assuming during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, right?
Yeah.
How was that? Uh, how was that transition for you? And then obviously just, trying to start your business, your consulting business.
Yeah, so I started my business in April of 2019 and I retired from the Air Force December 2019. So I was still active duty, just getting some foundation together, the
Okay.
legal stuff. So I thought I was going to hit the ground running in December, which I did. I hit the ground running in December, and 60 something days later, this thing comes on TV talking about COVID-19. And we're like, what is this? So I retired, and 60 days later was in a business that shut down in 60 days.
Mm.
So 60 days after I started my business completely shut down, like most businesses across the country. And then for 5 months, I did absolutely no business. So, just like any other time in my career, and they teach us in the military, right? You always adapt, and when something looks a certain way, you reassess and you go and you make a new plan. So I just didn't sit on my hands. I have some skills that I dusted off that I never used. Some of them I never used, and some I haven't used in 10 years. I'm a curriculum writer. I can design courses. I have all these skills that I haven't used since sometimes I was at E6 that Air Force has invested in me and spent money. So I just said, you know what? I think this COVID thing is going to be around after about a month for a while. So I went and started reaching out to people and say, would they be interested in having virtual courses because everybody's at home? So I got together with two friends and we just developed a whole suite of virtual courses. And we started doing it for free.
Mm.
And then the free courses turned into being contacted by bigger and bigger organizations and ultimately being contacted by NASA. So we started, developing these 90-minute virtual courses that we put together. And then we just went from there. And, it turned, as we, got about a year into the pandemic, we really started, finding our feet, and I started bringing more people on, and we started, developing more things, and it just took off from there.
The courses that you were doing virtually, were those like leadership courses, or what type of
Yeah, they were mostly continuing education. So you can think we had a course catalog. So we teach everything from how to develop organizational trust, how to develop cohesion, how to think, how to psych. We talk about, we have a course on psychological safety. We have a course on disinformation. We have a communication suite of courses. We have courses on diversity and inclusion, where it includes cognitive bias and all of these different things that organizations, no matter where it is, either they have to train their people on it, or it would help to train their people on these things to enhance their culture of their organization.
That's awesome, man. And so, I mean, you talked about adapting and overcoming obstacles. Like even when you started your business, and with the pandemic hitting, you were able to do that and made that shift, right, and still come out on top, even during those times. So that's
Yeah,
that's awesome,
yeah,
man.
it was a struggle. It wasn't always easy. I mean, it was hard. When people, it was hard. I had 5 or 6 people with me, and we were making $0 during this time. And it's hard to tell people sometimes, or it's the good thing when people still stick by you when you tell them, hey, we're doing this for free, but it's for the good of these organizations. And eventually, people will see our worth, and people will see our value, and then now, the calendar is booked, into late summer.
Mm, that's awesome.
So
So, you haven't you started this back in December, you said 2019.
yes.
So it's been about almost 3 years, just over 2 years. What would you say have been some of your biggest obstacles that you had to overcome, especially during the pandemic?
I think the biggest obstacles, to be honest, wasn't even the pandemic, because business in the world still turned, right? I think the biggest obstacles I had to overcome is myself, first and foremost, right? Is the self-doubt, right? Because from 18 years old to 43 years old, I had a guaranteed check every 2 weeks. I had someone who kind of gave me structure. I got PCS orders when it came. I moved when someone told me. I did a lot of things under my entire adult life, under a sense of structure.
Right.
So that on top of COVID-19, getting out, retiring, and on top of COVID-19, which none of us in the pandemic understood how to live in a world with no toilet paper and you know. So all of us had to get used to this new thing. So I was getting used to two things at the same time. So I had to get past the mental, and I've always been a transparent person about mental health, but I had to get past the mental piece of sitting in the house. Everyone's gone. My wife works at Walter Reed, and no one's in the house. I had to get past the mental piece of questioning if what I'm doing is going to be good enough, or is anybody going to reach out to me, or should I go get a job, which was the biggest question, the first 4 months after the pandemic. Like, should I go look for a job, or should I go, what? So it just, the biggest obstacle in the beginning was me.
Yeah, that every time, it's funny when I ask that question, and it's similar to what you're saying, right? It's because like you said, like we've come from, 20 plus years of structure of, being in an organization where, every 2 weeks you're going to get that paycheck, right?
Mhm.
And it's like after you're no longer part of that organization. It's always like the big question is like, well, can I do this by myself? Can I actually build a business? And it's always like that self-doubt is when people have when they start something new.
Absolutely, it's a big deal. I mean, I don't think most, and even us in uniform who transition, I don't think we realize how big. And I have a very big friend circle of a lot of folks who transitioned probably in the last 2 years, up until a couple of months. And the storyline is the same, but you don't really, when you're active duty, you don't hear those stories. You hear those storylines, but you don't pay attention to it because it doesn't really resonate with you
Right.
because you're like, oh yeah, I see. That's not going to be me. Yeah, that's not going to
Yeah.
be me.
And
Yeah, it's not going to be me. But when you're out here with the group, the people who are coming out here after you see it clear as day because you can recognize it in yourself, which you've already been through. And some people's cases are, um, some people's situations are worse than others. And when I say the transition, because it is a very, I mean, I don't think I don't care if you're in a senior position, officer or enlisted, you're still under a structure that I don't think you truly realize until the structure is taken away from you. And when that structure is taken away from you, you have to be prepared that what's left is enough of you to rebuild this new you, right? You can't
yeah,
just have an empty shell when you're trying to build from, because if that's all you have, then it's going to be a long road to discovering who you really are.
yeah, most definitely. Um, so Todd, we talked about some of your obstacles that you had to overcome. What were some of the, since starting your consulting business, what's been some of the most, rewarding experiences you've had so far?
I would tell you, I can name it. I just talked to a friend today. The biggest. So I started this business as a sole proprietor. Like it was just going to be me.
Right.
And I'm going to go out here. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do some consulting. I'm going to do some teaching. And then, like I said, I had a couple of friends in the pandemic who were doing exactly the same thing that I was doing, sitting at home. So when we got together, my business didn't start out as Courageous Leadership Alliance. It started out as Courageous Leadership. That's it. And then I added an A on it as Courageous Leadership Alliance because I'm like, there's some value in us teaming together. It doesn't, no one works for me, but it's some value in creating this hub where other people of like-minded people that want to plug into this development thing, that we can all meet in a space, make each other better, and become partners where we don't, where our weaknesses are. So my niche is maybe leader. My niche is organizational culture and resiliency. Those that's what I deal with. But if another friend of mine does, all of the communication stuff, that's his niche, and another friend has, all of these suite of other tools. If we brought those tools together, man, we can really be powerful to an organization because we can provide everything to. So that's what's kind of like the light bulb moment. And I will tell you with that, so why I say that as a success, that's not the success. The success is after we did, we started getting more clients and more customers. I looked up one day and there was 17 people working with me, right?
Mm.
And out of those 17 people, 90% of them were veterans. And as we just did our end of year taxes, when I look at, we provided jobs for 17 people. We provided second incomes for some people, third incomes for some people, or whatever the income is. But we provided, more importantly than the income, a method for people to live their passion and get paid for it.
I mean, you also created that team, the
Mhm.
camaraderie, the
Yeah,
community, after the service, right? And then,
absolutely.
like you said, just providing with 90% of them veterans, providing another mission or purpose for them after the service. So,
Absolutely. We just had an offsite in Orlando, and everybody at the offsite was a veteran. So it didn't start out being like, oh, I'm only going to bring veterans, because I do have 2 or 3 people who are not veterans, never were in the military. That wasn't what, I love the academic space, so you don't have to be, but I love the fact that this has provided a space for people who are veterans. And now I take a special interest in that, right? If, people who are transitioning from the military, they call me a lot. Hey, you know, we got this joke in my company. We're getting T-shirts. It says, "I do leadership," right? I get all kinds of people who call me, go, "I do leadership," and I'm like, yeah, okay. you have a lot of military experience, but just like I said, you have to bring out more than that, right? The military experience is so unique and so great, but you also have to bring more to the table than that if you're trying to get into a very, 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 very competitive and crowded space, which is leadership and consulting, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's a leadership consultant. And but but I tell you, I don't shy you away from doing it. You just got to make sure that your brand credibility and your trust and the trust that you grow in your brand can be transferred, beyond the military. Because in the military, I'm a E9 with a star and senior enlisted leader. I never got confused that a lot of people were listening to me because of those chevrons I had, right? So when those chevrons are taken away, you got to make sure that your substance is something that, regardless if somebody is sitting in Amazon or somebody is sitting in a naval base, that they're listening to you because of the substance that you have and that you're connecting with them in the message that you have, not because of who you are.
Yeah, that's a great point. At the end of the day, it's if you could provide value for them, then that's all. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Todd, we have veterans mostly listening, and some non-veterans as well. But maybe they want to be part of your team and Courageous Leadership Alliance. What are some ways, or maybe one step that they can do to be a part of CLA?
So I tell you first, like I tell you, no one works for CLA. It's not. It's like it's a house. I have 4 employees, and none of them do leadership. They're back. They're admin, they're finance, they're marketing and stuff. But the people you go to our website, I would tell check us out first. Don't rush into anything, right? You can go to social media, LinkedIn, IG. All of our social media accounts is Courageous Leadership Alliance, right? And I would tell you to go check out what we do. Go to Courageous Lead, www.courageouslead.com. Check out what we do. We're in the process of completely overhauling our website right now. So if you see some construction stuff on there, there's still a lot of other content on there. But check out who we are, what we do, the feel of what we do. And I would tell you that nothing we do is an overnight success, right? So it doesn't matter if you have 10 years, 20 years, or 35 years in the military. It's still, we all have to start somewhere. So we're a group of folks who believe in one thing. Number one, having fun. Number two, being credible and research-based. And number three, being people who can transcend this notion of the enlisted force only has a ceiling, because we don't. It's 2022. The enlisted force is not looking way it looked for 100 years ago. So I would say if they want to be a part of that, info, we have an email, info at courageouslead.com. They can, you can go to our website at courageouslead.com, and on the contact us, there's a form that literally is for that reason. What are you interested in? So if you're interested in something, at the end of the day, I'm willing to help you, even if you never work with Courageous Leadership Alliance, right? It's just one of those things where we have been down the road 2 years, and we understand some of the roadblocks and some of the pitfalls, and we don't believe in people repeating mistakes that we have repeated. Most people who work with me are business owners. They have their own LLC, and they're growing their business under the CLA brand. And eventually, I believe that whoever works under the CLA brand should branch out and do their own thing.
Do their own thing, yeah.
So this isn't about under the thumb of anybody. This is about, we believe that there's unlimited seats at the table. We don't believe in this whole only one of us needs to succeed.
So I know you've Todd, it's only been a couple of years, right? But where do you see CLA at maybe in the near future? What do you see it doing? What service do you see it providing more of to your customers?
That's a scary thought, because I retired to honestly retire, and I found myself, I just was talking to my wife. She just left out here before we started talking, and I found myself, but it's a good work, right? I feel purposeful about what I do now, and I feel really, because you're building your own thing. There's no training wheels on this thing. You're either going to ride this bike or not. So
yeah,
I see CLA being an unlimited force in this space if we want it to be. It's growing rapidly. It's doubling in size every 6 months. So from a business standpoint, so I know we're doing some things. So we do leadership consulting to all the way to in-person workshops, to virtual workshops. We do coaching. We have ICF certified coaching. We do prep training, so pre-training for the RBLP certification, and we'll be doing PMP prep training here soon. So we do a myriad of things. I see CLA continuing to grow. I see that lion being on side of a building, to be honest with you.
Mm.
In less than 10 years.
We'll be on the lookout for it, man. Yeah, so Todd, before we go to the second segment of the podcast, what's one thing you want our listeners and our viewers to take away from this episode?
I would tell you the first thing is, and I'm quoting one of my friends, Khalid, right? He said, run your own race, right? First and foremost, run your own race. Don't worry about what someone else is doing to the left and right of you. Don't worry about even focus on your own self-doubt if you have any, and focus on your own risk tolerance. I call it, CPR, the courage, the preparedness, and the risk. Do you have the courage to tackle this thing that you're afraid of? And do you have the preparedness, and are you willing to take the risk? So focus on your own CPR, right? So you have the courage because you already proven that you're a courageous leader. The biggest thing is not even the risk. The biggest thing is the preparedness. Yeah. I tell people, if you think you want to do something, then you start training then. I love Usain Bolt's comment about he trains 4 years for 9 seconds. He trains 4 years to run 9 seconds in the Olympics. So you have to be prepared for whatever you're going to tackle. You can't say, I want to be a public keynote speaker, and never go out there and speak in the most uncomfortable places that you can
practice
find.
Or speak in front of people.
Yeah. You can't say I want to be a leadership development consultant when you have not successfully consulted any organization through a leadership challenge. So if you're going to do those things, get your reps. That's the best thing that I would tell you. There's nothing wrong with humbling yourself and getting the reps and finding out where your gaps and seams are and filling those. So what I would want to, all of that sums up what the quote is: run your own race. If you see someone in front of you, just strive to catch up with them. It's not a competition. Just do the work for yourself to catch them. You don't need to, because of the time that you waste by looking at them and being envious or having a self-doubt that I can't get there, you're never going to get there. It's only going to slow you down. It's not going to speed you up. Those things are extra weights in your rucksack, and you don't need them in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Don't waste time just looking at where other people are at with their progress, with their race, right? Because you might fall down and not pay attention with what's going on with your lane, right? So
yeah. Stay in your lane and keep your face direction toward the finish line, and run the race for you to get through the tape. Don't worry about who else is doing what.
Yep. That's a great point, Todd. So Todd, going into our second segment of the podcast here. So I call this the Fast Five. These are the same 5 questions I ask all my guests.
Okay.
So first question is, what's one hobby you enjoy?
Golfing.
You doing that lately with the weather up there?
Not with the weather, but I tell you, golfing for me, I'm an outside person, very nature orientated. I'm a horrible golfer. My handicap's a 21. and for those of you who golf out there, that's not great, right? My handicap's a 21, but I go golfing as much as I can. I go on a golf trip with my friends every 3 months. And we've been doing that for 2 years since I retired. Every 3 months, I go on a golf trip away somewhere for 4 days or 5 days. And I really enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy the outside. I love the fact that, again, when you talk about running your own race, I love the fact that golf is a sport that you're only competing against yourself.
You versus you, yeah.
It's you versus you. At the end of the day, it is you versus you. Yeah. and if you come out there and your head isn't clear, then it's you versus you. If you come out there and your fundamentals aren't right, it's you. So I love the challenge of there's no perfect golf game, and it's me. It really gets me in tune with myself, how I can control myself to a point to execute a good golf shot. How I have to, I have to get myself together. It's a self-control challenge, and I love it. And I just love being outside. I love walking golf courses. Just love being around that atmosphere. So it's a great, it's turned into my number one hobby.
Awesome, man. So, Todd, next question here. If you had to choose one person to hang out with for one day, who would it be and why?
Man, I think it would be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But I don't know if you said if they're still here. If they do this.
Yeah, anybody, past or present.
Okay, past or present, Dr. Martin Luther King. And it would be, I would be so interested in just at 30, at mid 30s, I would just be more interested in knowing the weight of what he had to carry. How did it feel to have that level of pressure on him at that young of an age? And how did he handle that? And how did he approach that? Because we can see it in the video and all of this, but that doesn't tell the whole story. I would just love to have that conversation with him.
Yeah, definitely one of the few people that you definitely want to have those conversations with. Todd, next question. Recommend a book for our audience to read.
Since the level of audience that we're talking about, I would recommend David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me.
Have you listened to the audiobook?
The audiobook, I've listened to it 5 times. The audiobook,
yeah, that book is interesting. Yeah,
it is, and I will tell you why. Because I got a hold of, a friend recommended that book to me back in 2019. I think it was what it came out with, right? I think it was like 2019. I listened to it, and I ended up reading the book, and I was like, okay. And then I was traveling a lot, and he said, no, you have to get the audio.
Yeah,
and I got the audio. And I said, oh my goodness, this is awesome, because it had so many similarities, right? And it wasn't because he was a SEAL or anything. The level of perseverance that he came through in life, my story was similar to that. So it was like one of those things, and it inspired me the next year to go to a publisher and publish my own book. So, my book published here last year, and it inspired me to go talk about that front to back life that I've had since I was 6 years old to retiring from the military, and what I had to go through, everything, just putting it out there. And it really inspired me to do that, because I always wanted to, but I had some fear, because once you put something on paper, it's forever. Right. So I would tell people, if they haven't listened to the audiobook for David Goggins, it just really, you can agree or disagree with anything, but the life of his perseverance about how to get up every day and not let anything beat him. It's a very inspiring story, and it's an inspiring way to kind of look at, how someone executes their grit, their personal grit.
Yeah, and for those who haven't gotten the book, you got to listen to audio. Mm-hmm. You got to listen to audio.
I think I have the book right here, actually, because I actually give away a copy. I give away books. I don't give anybody anything but books.
Yeah.
So I tend to pick a book off my bookshelf when I'm on a podcast or something, or when I'm on a live webinar I'm doing. I'll typically I have actually 5 sheets of paper I'm looking at on my printer behind me of addresses that I got to send books to.
And you mentioned you wrote your own book. Was this like an autobiography of you?
It was a memoir.
Yes. Okay. And the title of the book is
it's Why Not Me. So my book is Why Not Me. So my book is called Why Not Me, and it's called Born to Fail, Destined to Succeed. So, and it's out on Amazon, Barnes. It's in bookstore. I actually went through it's in Mascot. If you're looking for the publishers, Mascot Books, but it's out on Amazon. If you look on Amazon, or most people use Amazon, but it's in Barnes and Noble, all of the different bookstores.
Okay.
That's live right there, right? So books are falling, everything's good. But no, it's out on bookstores and Amazon, and you can find it out there.
Awesome. Why not me? Okay. Todd, next question. What's your favorite quote and why?
Oh man, you're gonna catch me with a quote. I guess it probably sounds very disingenuous to quote yourself sometimes, right? But it's not my quote. I would say unknown author. I just been using it for a while, right? Don't read your own press clips.
Say that one more time.
Don't read your own press clips. Basically, your achievements are great, but don't get wrapped up in your achievements makes you better than anyone else, right? So I've never taken Todd Simmons more serious than I've taken the human being that I was responsible to lead. Right? Yes, if I was NCO of the year or any accolade that I ever received, I never got lost in the fact that that was never my personal achievement to own by myself, right? Or it didn't make me a superhuman. It was a time and space that I was recognized for something and then I moved on. So reading your own press clips can really create this sense of entitlement, and it can create a sense of superiority, which should never be something that you pick up as a character trait, because humility and moral courage and all of those different things are going to go away the second that you think you become better than the next person.
Yeah, especially as a leader.
Yes.
Being humble and having humility.
Absolutely.
Two strong things. So Todd, next question. Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now?
Oh yeah, a year is easy. I see myself in a year, kind of getting this new life, because it's only been 2 years, stabilized, right? Not traveling as much, kind of really having my business on a really strong footing where it's functioning the way I would like it to function. 5 years, I see myself turning this business over to someone who's 30 something years old, a millennial,
Handing it over.
handing it over to someone and still be involved from a very external. I see that in 5 years. And in 10 years, I see myself totally retired and living half the time in the US and half the time in the Caribbean, and really doing a lot of philanthropy work. That I still do that now, help out. But in 10 years, I want to commit myself 100% to just giving back. Anything that I do would be for nonprofits, or anything I do would be, for helping out the passion of mine, which is, bridging the education gap in underserved communities, bridging the STEM gap in underserved communities. My ultimate goal, if I was ever able to do it in 10 years, I would want to open my own charter school.
Where do you plan on doing that?
Not any particular location yet, because the military is like anyone who's a military. Your home becomes everywhere, right? So, I've lived all over the place, and I've fallen in love with a lot of communities. It doesn't necessarily have to be the community where I originated from. Where I would want to do it where the need is most great, and I have the most passion for those community and what the people are willing to also come. Join hand in hand with, right? Who's gonna
help out with?
Who's gonna come in and let's do this full force?
Right.
Who's gonna equal the energy? So, but that's where I would see myself in 10 years. Is really spending the rest of my life that I'll be able to, is if I stay healthy and all of those things and stay above ground, that I just want to spend the rest of my life at that point. I retired relatively young, so in 10 years I'll be 55 years old. So I'll hopefully I have the rest of that time on earth to, hopefully it's decades, to really do the things and be in a position to do the things for people that's meaningful.
Well, Todd, man, I appreciate all that you're doing with your business, Courageous Leadership Alliance, your team that you guys have, everybody around you. Appreciate everything, man. And before we go, where can they follow you? Where can they support you? Where can they learn more about CLA?
Awesome. Yeah, I threw out a couple of things, so I put it in order. So they can go to www.courageouslead.com. That's our website. Courageous Leadership Alliance. You can find us on LinkedIn. We are primarily on LinkedIn, but you can find us on IG, and you can find us on Facebook. Courageous Leadership Alliance across all social media platforms. If you want to email us directly, info@courageouslead.com, info@courageouslead.com. That goes directly into our system. We got an amazing person who lives in San Antonio, Texas right now, and moving to Dallas, who's our admin person who will get that thing right. And if you want to hit us on the website, we have also places where you can kind of filter, hey, if you want to, whatever you want from us, you can kind of see it on there. But yeah, you can get a hold of us all kinds of ways. So just check us out. Send us an email. We are opening up a huge learning management system called Mighty Network soon, and we're going to have free courses on there. We're going to have some paid courses. We're going to have a lot of free stuff, and we're going to be sending out a mass email to join our Mighty Networks, where you can go get free professional development. You can take self-paced courses. all of these things. We're going to have live events on there every month where we'll have 30 to 45-minute courses on some of the great titles that we offer in our course catalog. So yeah, we'll love to have you on there. This a one, and that's nothing, and that doesn't cost anything to join. I made a conscious decision to make the whole platform open up for free. We will have some paid things behind a wall, but it'll be few and far between.
So that's the Mighty Networks app, correct?
Yes.
Because I think I've also saw Bunker Labs is also doing that as well. But
Yes.
you're providing free
Yes.
training on there.
Yeah, so
Man,
we're gonna open it up. I think 1 March we'll be opening the whole Mighty Networks up. We got some pieces that we're opening up next week, but yeah, we're going to have live instructors come on just like this. We'll have events on there where we're going to have a course, and you can get a certificate at the end. We'll have an hour-long course on psychological safety, hour-long course on emerging leaders. We're going to bring some great leaders from around the DoD and civilian sector on there, maybe every month, and have leader talks and stuff like that, and it just be a great place. We got over 13,000 people in our email system, and we're going to invite everybody in our Mighty Networks. We invite your audience to join, and we just want to, the same reason why Courageous Leadership Alliance was created as that house that houses all these things. It's going to be the same thing on our Mighty Networks, and we're going to have that house where people can get together and learn things, discuss things, hear things that are typically not talked about in their units and organizations around the DoD, or in their organizations in the civilian sector, or in their high school. It'll be something for everyone.
and then all they have to do is get on your email list, and then from there.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, they can go directly to Mighty Networks and look up Courageous Leadership Alliance. And right now, we're not, you can, we won't let you in yet because it's not open, right? We don't. So, but I will tell you, anytime after 1 March, just go on there and you can connect. But if you get on our email list, you'll see us send an email out inviting you to join. And
Awesome.
we're looking forward to that. We're going to grow that Mighty Network to tens of thousands of people. We want a place where if people feel, and that's the place where we talked about in the beginning, someone thought they want to join the CLA team, we might go, hey, come put on this free course for 45 minutes. Let's see what you got. Have the audience listen to you. Of course, we'll help you design it and help you make sure that you're not going to get out there and just go off the plank or something. But but we'll make sure that you're good to go. But we have opportunities to house a lot of things. We have opportunities to have an unlimited amount of content readily in one place. So we're looking forward to that.
Awesome, Todd. And we are looking forward as well. That's Mighty Networks. Be on the lookout for Courageous Leadership Alliance. Make sure you check out the website, courageouslead.com, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Courageous Leadership Alliance. Check them out. And Todd, I appreciate the time, man, and thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it, and keep leading out there.
All right, take care.
All right, thank you.